Welcome to Fifth Avenue Church Online, everybody, or what I've been calling lately Pajama Church. I want to tell you, every single one of you, happy Easter today. I'm so glad you could be with me today because Easter rocks. In the movie The Lost World, which is part of the Jurassic Park movie series, there's an iconic line that one of the main characters utters. He looks at the screen and says these words. He says, "Life will find a way." That's what Easter is. It is a celebration of the fact that life found a way. So today I want to focus on three elements of Easter that will get you excited about this holy day and will actually launch you in to your experience of Easter. And the first element is this: forgiveness. Forgiveness is actually a huge part of the story of Easter. Check out these verses from the book of Luke, and they describe one of the things that took place while Jesus was hanging on the cross. We'll put this on the screen for you, but let me read it for you. Two other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. And when they came to the place called the Skull, or Golgotha in some of your Bibles, they crucified him there along with the other criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." And then they divided up his clothes by casting lots. Wow. So one of the last things Jesus does before he dies is he extends forgiveness to people. That lets you know how important it is. Because when people know that their death is impending, they don't waste their time with meaningless things. They don't say, "Well, I'm about to die. I'd really like to do one last load of laundry," or I would like to pay my bills one last time, or binge watch one more television show. They don't do that. They spend their time on what's truly important, what's a priority for them. They want to hug their family members. They want to tell their friends how much they love and appreciate them. They want to see one last sunset, eat one last bowl of ice cream. Yeah, that kind of thing. The important stuff, all right? So here's Jesus using some of the last breaths that he draws into his body on earth, and he uses them to extend forgiveness to all people, including us. So this is so cool. Jesus is showing us that Easter actually starts with forgiveness. Forgiveness is what got Easter going. One of my favorite quotes is from an author named Timothy Keller, and we'll put this on your screen for you too. He says this, he writes this in one of his books: "Forgiveness is a form of suffering, like a death, but it's a death that leads to resurrection." A death that leads to resurrection. Yeah, so how Eastery is forgiveness? Both Easter and forgiveness have to do with death and resurrection. So Easter and forgiveness are forever linked together, which lets us know that forgiveness won't be easy because death and resurrection is never an easy process. I seriously doubt Jesus was hanging there on the cross as he's being executed thinking, "Wow, this sure is fun. Wish I could do this more than once." There's no way. And evidently, resurrection is hard work too, because one of the first things that Jesus says after he is risen from the grave is he goes to some of his followers and says this: "Hey, do you got anything to eat?" Evidently, when one rises from the dead, one works up quite the appetite. But back to Jesus. Forgiveness is a huge priority to him. He talked about it all the time while he was living on earth, and he extended it while he was dying. But it's so hard. Forgiveness is so difficult. Think about it. Jesus was extending forgiveness while he was on the cross. So that meant he was extending forgiveness to some people who were currently executing him, who were torturing him, who were mocking him, who were rejecting him. And yet his prayer is, "Father, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing." If it would have been me hanging on the cross, and it's a good thing it wasn't, if it would have been me, my prayer would have been completely different than the prayer that Jesus offered. I wouldn't have said, "Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing." My prayer would have been something to the effect of, "Father, don't forgive them. They know exactly what they're doing. In fact, not only don't I don't want you to forgive them, can you light them on fire right now? Just for a little bit, and then put them out, but give them warts after that," or something like that, for all of eternity. Forgiveness just doesn't come easy to most of us. It's not natural. It's supernatural, but it's not natural. You know it doesn't come easy for me because just about a month ago, I confessed the fact that I have an extensive "you're dead to me" list. When people deeply hurt me, instead of marching straight into forgiveness, I tend to just put them on a "you're dead to me" list for a while. I don't want them to stay on there, but every time I start to get them off the list and think about them more, my blood starts to boil and back on the list they go. But I found out I'm not the only one because I confessed this also to my neighbor who lives right over there. And she said, "Oh, you think that's bad? Let me tell you about my mother." Her mother, when someone deeply hurt her, she would go through this mental exercise where she would imagine herself digging a hole in the ground and placing this person who had done her injury or harm, placing their body into the hole in the ground and covering them up. Literally, she would imagine them being actually dead to her. And then when she ran across these people, she refused to look them in the eye after that. She would always just look over their shoulder a little bit, look off to the side, or somehow she had this ability to stare right through them. Oh man, that was so funny I couldn't quit laughing. It's not good, but it is funny. Okay? I don't want to be numb. And that's what having a "you're dead to me" list does. It just makes you numb. It prevents you from learning anything through the pain that you're going through. I don't want numbness. I want resurrection. I want the new life that comes on the other side of forgiveness. And with that in mind, please let me share just a few things about forgiveness. It'll be a review for some of you, but it's such an important topic. And I think you'll find these helpful and they will launch you into Easter. First, let's talk about what forgiveness is not, because there's some real misunderstandings about forgiveness. Forgiveness is not condoning. Some people refuse to give others because they think if I forgive them, it's like I'm putting my stamp of approval on their behavior, on what they did to me. No, when you forgive a person, you're not putting your stamp of approval on their behavior. What they did was wrong. It hurt you. It will always be wrong. You are a deeply loved child of God, and you deserve to be treated better than that. You're not approving of their behavior. You're actually disapproving of their behavior when you forgive. If you approved of it, you would never have to forgive them. Second thing is, forgiveness is not forgetting. So many people are convinced the phrase "forgive and forget" is in the Bible. It's not, because first of all, that's an impossible thing to do, and second of all, that's just a whole dorky idea, okay? When you forgive someone, it does not involve forgetting. We don't have those clicky devices they had in the movie Men in Black that allow us to erase other people's memories or our own. You cannot forget a deep hurt or wound that was caused by another person in your life. So please hear me. If you're trying to forgive someone yet you continue to remember what they did to you, don't beat yourself up about that. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you lack faith. It simply means that you are human. Forgiveness doesn't mean we forget the past. What it does mean is we refuse to live in the past because there's no future in the past, right? And lastly, forgiveness is not reconciliation. When you forgive someone, it doesn't mean you have to jump right back into a very close, intimate relationship with them. No, not at all. Not at all. Because you see, when you forgive someone, it doesn't require them to apologize or to even be sorry for what they did. You can still forgive them apart from that. But reconciliation does involve them owning their part of the hurt. It does involve apologies. It does involve them being sorry. So there will be times when you will be able to forgive a person, yet still maintain boundaries with that person, healthy boundaries, because that person might still be toxic to you or even dangerous. So, this begs the question, what is forgiveness then? We know what it's not, but what is forgiveness? This thing that Jesus modeled for us on the cross, this thing that helps us to enter in fully to the celebration of Easter. Let me tell you a few things. First of all, this is what forgiveness is. It's possible. It's possible. If you have any friends that come from the southern United States, you notice their southern accent or their southern drawl and maybe some of their quirky phrases. We think they talk funny, they actually think we talk funny. But one of my favorite quirky phrases of people who grew up in the South is this. They always say this: I can't, never, could do that. For example, if I played golf with someone that wasn't good and they're from the South, they go, Tim, you're so good at golf. You know, I can't, never, could golf. I just love it. That's how we tend to think about forgiveness. We think, forgiving someone that caused me deep emotional or physical pain, I can't, never, could do that. It seems impossible to us. It's not. It's difficult, but it's doable. In Matthew chapter 19, Jesus utters these famous words. He says, with God, all things are possible. All things. That means forgiveness. Yeah, it is doable. Second of all, forgiveness is remembering. Forgiveness is not forgetting. I just told you that earlier. It's actually a profound form of remembering. It's remembering the wrong that was done to us, but it's not stopping there. It's also remembering that we made a choice. We made a choice to let go of our desire to seek revenge. We made a choice not to repay evil with evil. We made a choice that says the cycle of pain is stopping with me. I'm not passing it back, and I'm not passing it forward to other people. Forgiveness is remembering. And lastly, forgiveness is freedom. Bitterness, and I know this from firsthand experience, bitterness can continue to infect and poison your soul long after the harm or the injury or the offense was done to you. And it's an awful cycle to be stuck in. I'm going to put up a quote from a young lady named Mary Karen Reed. And tragically, Mary Karen lost her life in the Virginia Tech shooting. But she used to keep a journal. In one of her last journal entries, she wrote down these words: when deep injury is done to us, we never recover till we forgive. When deep injury is done to us, we never recover till we forgive. I couldn't agree with her more. Forgiveness is a huge factor in recovering and the healing, going through the healing process in our life. Because what it does, forgiveness prevents bitterness from occupying the space in our hearts that joy and love should rightly occupy. So now, how do we forgive? We know what forgiveness is, and we know what it is, but how do we go about starting this really difficult process? I just want to suggest two things that will help you get started on the path of forgiveness. And the first is pray. Not just some nebulous prayer, but pray for the people that actually caused you the pain. This is so painful. You're not going to believe how painful this is at first. And don't pray something like, God, please help them lose their sense of taste or infest their house with fleas. Not that kind of prayer, okay? You need to pray that God's goodness and blessing will flow into their lives in abundance. And as painful as it is to do this, and it is painful, what happens is the more you pray for them, the more you loosen your grip on your desire to seek revenge on them. Prayer works. Secondly, remember, there's that word again. You've been forgiven. Remember that. Look, all of us can act like trolls at times. In fact, during this whole shutdown time, you're having to live in a lot more close proximity to the people that you share a house or an apartment with, right? And every once in a while, your inner troll gets the best of you, and you say or do something that hurts or offends someone that you're sharing a home with. Okay, we've all probably done it. And what happens after that? It doesn't stop there. What happens after that is you are forgiven. You're not just forgiven by the person that you hurt or offended, you're also forgiven by God. And remembering the fact that we have been forgiven helps us to extend forgiveness to others. Because it just makes sense. I've received something so amazing and miraculous, I should probably pass it on. Forgiven people forgive. That statement is actually true. Now, I also realize that as I'm talking, some of you have been hurt so deeply, so profoundly, that it's actually heroic that you're even considering the possibility of someday forgiving the person that caused you that pain. And what I want to say to you right now is, I applaud you. I applaud you. just being able to consider that you might be able to forgive them sometime in the future is such an important first step. So well done. But for all of us, I hope we'll all dare to follow the example that was set for us by Jesus as he was hanging on the cross. Because forgiveness, though it's difficult work, it's holy work, and it's a work that will lead us to resurrection. Second element I want to talk about regarding Easter is friendship. Easter is also all about friendship. I want you to look at this. I want you to look at this story out of the book of John. It has to do with the death of one of Jesus's close friends, a guy named Lazarus. And let me read this for you too. This is out of John chapter 11. Jesus, once more deeply moved, he was stirred in his guts, is what that means. He came to the tomb, and it was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. "Take away the stone," he said. "But Lord," said Martha, who is the sister of the dead man, Lazarus, "by this time there's a bad odor, for he has been in there 4 days." Then Jesus said, "Did I not tell you, if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" And that word glory means kavod. It means weight or significance or the importance of God. So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I actually said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." When Jesus had said this, he called out in a loud voice. So he's yelling now, "Lazarus, come out," or "Lazarus, come forth." The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped in strips of linen and a cloth around his face. And Jesus said to them, "Take off the grave clothes and let him go." Wow. Lazarus was a very close friend of Jesus, but now he had died, and he wasn't just mostly dead, he was fully dead. So the people around Jesus at this time would have objected to Jesus attempting to resurrect his best friend Lazarus here, because according to ancient teachings, ancient Jewish beliefs, a person's soul lingered in the general vicinity of their body for several days after death. But after several days, a human soul would refuse to enter back into a body that had been dead longer than that, because a soul wouldn't want to enter into a partially decomposed and smelly corpse. And for an entirely different reason, Martha objects to Jesus' attempt to resurrect her brother Lazarus, because she actually says it out loud, "Lord, do not do this. It's going to reek in there. He's been dead for a while." She didn't want her last memory of her beloved brother to be her reversing up her breakfast at the wave of nauseous fumes that came over her as they rolled away the stone and the stink of his rotting corpse came out. She didn't want that to be her last memory of Lazarus, but they do it anyway. They roll back the stone, they face the funky odor, and Jesus calls Lazarus back to life, which is a sneak preview of his own resurrection that was going to take place just a short time later. But then Jesus does the craziest thing. He calls out to the friends of Lazarus standing nearby him and says, "Take off his grave clothes." Let me tell you why this was crazy. First of all, because those grave clothes would have been vile, absolutely vile, smelly, dirty, moldy, reeking of death. Nobody wanted to touch those babies. And second of all, Lazarus would have been naked underneath his grave clothes and the shroud he would have been covered in. So no dude, I can promise you this, no dude on the planet wants to see one of their best friends naked, especially not after they've been dead for 4 days, okay? Nobody wants that emblazoned into their memory banks. I can just imagine the friends of Lazarus as they're unwinding the grave clothes off of him saying, "Oh, make it stop, please, Jesus, for all that is good in the world, make this stop." You know, there are ways to tell who your true friends are. I got a couple. First of all, they don't make fun of your questionable taste in music, do they? You can be a country music fan and admit that to your true friend, and they'll stay your true friend. And second of all, they don't get offended when you insult them. Friends will get offended when you insult them, but true friends won't. They'll just look at you and say even something more offensive to you. That's how you know you're true friends. And lastly, true friends adhere to this particular saying, one of my favorite friendship quotes. True friends actually do this. It says, here's the quote: "Friends come and go like the waves of the ocean, but the true ones stay like an octopus on your face." Right? Okay, you get the point. True friends stick with you and they're willing to go to great lengths to help you. These friends of Lazarus were true friends. They were willing to do gross, uncomfortable things so that their friend could walk in the freedom and the joy of new life. And it's the same with us. One day we will all experience a physical resurrection. I believe that. Because the same power that rose Jesus up out of the grave is at work in us and will cause us to rise from the dead as well. But before that day, we will still experience different forms of resurrection. We will change. We will transform. We will die to our old habits and ways of living, and will be raised up, resurrected to a new self, to a new way of living, a way that more closely resembles Jesus. And our friends play a huge part in that. Let me tell you what this will look like for you on a very practical level. We have to risk, if we want to experience this kind of resurrection, we have to risk showing other people, our trusted friends, our vulnerability and shame. We've got to share those two things with them. We, like Lazarus, have to give them access to our grave clothes, the grossest, messiest, most embarrassing parts of our life. The things that when we even think about them, they bind us up with this constricting sense of shame. And when you do this, when you give people access to your grave clothes, your true friends will stay. They will listen to you. They will love you. They will help you work through your issues. They will be there to pick up the pieces of your shattered dreams. They will comfort you after epic failures in your life. They will process your pain and grief with you. They will unwrap your garments of shame one at a time until you're finally and completely free. This is so counterintuitive. We are taught from a young age in our culture to hide our shame and embarrassment at all costs, only put forth our happy, shiny image, the Facebook persona of ourselves. And Jesus gets rid of that whole idea in these scriptures. Jesus is basically saying, nah, let's get real with each other. Let's roll away the stone. Let's deal with the stink. Let's unwrap the grave clothes so people can be free from the crippling effects of shame. Easter is about having and being a friend like this. That's what Easter's about. And check this out. In verse 40, Jesus says, "You will see the glory of God." That word kavod, the importance, the significance, the reality of God. So what is happening here is we are taught that when we allow people access to our shame and our grave clothes, and when we're unwrapped, people will see the change that's taken place in our life. They will see us being resurrected up to a new and better version of ourselves, a self that more resembles the life of Jesus. And that process will help make God visible to other people. It will open their eyes to the reality and significance of God, because that kind of change, they know it couldn't happen by our own willpower. We needed help. We needed God's help. So I want you to remember this phrase. It'll help you recall these scriptures, and it'll get you excited about Easter. Where there is stink, there is the hope of glory. Isn't that great? Last element of Easter is hope. Easter infuses us with hope, which is something every single person on the planet actually needs a triple scoop of right now. Let me show you how we get infused with hope by looking at a couple of verses out of John chapter 20. Let me read verses 19 through 22 for us. On the evening of the first day of the week, when the disciples were together with the doors locked for fear of some of the Jewish leaders, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and side, letting them know it was really him, the one who hung on the cross. The disciples were overjoyed when they saw the Lord. And again Jesus said, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I am sending you." And with that he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit." So here's the situation. Jesus had risen from the grave on the very first Easter morning of all time. But this good news had not traveled to all of his friends and followers yet, because there's no Twitter or Instagram or social media or cell phones. Till this moment, when Jesus somehow beams himself into a locked room, and his first words are, "Peace be with you." And he probably had to say, "Peace be with you," because they were so freaked out. They were looking at him and going, "Dude, how'd you get into the locked room? How'd you pull that off?" We don't know. We'll see the videotape in heaven. You know, there was a study done by the University of California a few years back, and it studied spoilers. You know how when some people tell you the end of a movie, that's a spoiler to the movie? But their findings when they studied spoilers were so interesting. They found that for many people, hearing a spoiler about the end of the movie didn't ruin the movie for them. Just the opposite, it made the movie better for them. They were actually more comfortable as they were watching the movie take place, and they were able to understand deeper things, deeper meanings about the narrative that was unfolding in front of them. It actually made them enjoy the movie more. This sounds so weird. I'm a movie buff, and I do not like it when people tell me the end of the movie. I really don't. But it's not weird when you think about it. For example, imagine you're watching a movie with a young child, and suddenly in the movie there's a scary part where the character or main characters are in grave danger. Like when Wesley and Buttercup are facing the rodents of unusual size as they make their way through the fire swamp in Princess Bride, the greatest movie of all time. Okay, like that. If you were watching this part of the Princess Bride with a young child, you would lean over to them if they were getting all frightened and say, don't worry, they're going to make it through this okay. In the verses we just read, Jesus tells his followers, settle down, peace be with you. And his presence was actually proof that he had defeated death, which, by the way, is the ultimate rodent of unusual size. This would have reminded them of a spoiler he gave to them just a short while before this, when he looked at them and said these words, "In a little while you will see me no more. Then after a little while you will see me." He was trying to give them a spoiler so his death and resurrection wouldn't freak them out so much. They'd forgotten about the spoiler, so it did, but that's what he was trying to do. Well, check this out. We've been given a spoiler about our futures. It doesn't ruin our futures. It makes it better for us as we're waiting for our future to unfold. And it's found in the book of 1 Corinthians. We'll put this on the screen for you. It says this, "But Christ has indeed been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep." Which in modern lingo means this: Jesus rose from the dead, and we're next. We've got next. So we've heard the spoiler. It doesn't ruin things for us, it makes it better. Death is defeated. Life bats last. We're told this, we believe this, we know this. This infuses us, our whole soul, our whole body on a cellular level. It infuses us with hope. And more than that, it helps us to go out and live our life as conduits for hope. We can actually bring hope to other people, and they desperately need it right now. I want to show you a quote that I just love about this. It's from a book I read a few years ago. "The world needs people willing to give fear the finger, because they inspire others to be audacious and brave too. This is how movements are started. When 1 or 2 or 50 people decide that terrible things won't overwhelm them. Please listen to the spoiler that's been given to us so that terrible things won't overwhelm us, and let it infuse you with hope so that you can be a conduit of hope for the rest of the world. Life has found a way. Life has found a way." In a moment, I'm going to pray for us all, as is my custom. But before we do that, we have a special treat for you on Easter. Somehow, through the miracle of technology, we have a musical number with Joel playing an instrument, and my good friend Ali Council doing the singing from 2 separate locations. I don't understand even how that can work. But please listen to this song as they prepared it for you, and let it help you be filled with hope today. Ali, Joel, take it away, and then I'll be back to pray. All right. Thank you so much for that musical treat for us. That's such a gift for us on this holiday. Let me pray for all of us, can we? Thank you, God, for Easter. It rocks. Please help all of us, Lord, to have the strength and courage to actually enter into the process of forgiveness. It's so difficult, but it's doable with your help. We don't want to settle for numbness. We want resurrection. We want the new life that comes on the other side of forgiveness. So please take us on that journey, even if it's one tiny step at a time. And God, please help us to have and actually to be true friends so we can help start unwrapping the grave clothes off of each other, enabling us to walk in the freedom of new life, completely rid of our shame. And lastly, Lord, thank you for the spoiler that you gave to us. Death is defeated, life bats last. So, despite our current circumstances, we are infused with hope today. It is well with our souls. And we get to be a part of starting a movement of hope in our world. Ah, what could be better than that? Thanks for the privilege of partnering with you in this process. We love you, Lord, and we celebrate your resurrection today. And everybody said, Amen. Thank you so much for being with us here today. We're going to continue our online presence, doing our pajama church, so we hope you'll join us next Sunday as well. Blessings on your life right now. And again, air hugs to all of you. I love you. Bye-bye.